Hello. Sunday, February 9th, Super Bowl day. This is Super Bowl 58. I remember the first one, 1967. Green Bay and, what was it, Kansas City Chiefs. Kansas City's back in the Super Bowl. And, you know, you look at it, it's Roman numerals, right? They do the Roman numerals thing. And the reason I suspect is because football players are the modern gladiators. And if you look at the football stadium, it resembles a Coliseum, Rome, right? So that's probably somebody was like being, clever. But today I'm going to roll the clock back. You notice how 66 and 67 keep popping up? Yeah? A lot happened then, around that time. Trend things, branches. So I'm going to go back 5 years to 62. Now I was living in Austin, Texas from 60 to 64. Dad was back at school getting stuff, we lived just right off campus. I guess what they call that, married student something, whatever. Married family housing. It was a house, but it was right off campus. Guadalupe Avenue. Had a creek, that creek that skirts around the side of the university, basically paralleling I-35 north-south, ends up down at the river, whatever, Colorado, whatever that name of that river is there. Boy, that was a great place to be in the early 60s. Football, we were able to go to see the UT football games for like 25 cents with what was called a not hold ticket. Just basically sat in the end zone. After the game, ran out on the field, ran around, go watch the practices. Because it was just right there. It was university, right? And the elementary school I went to was Woolridge Elementary School. It was just right off of the campus. And that was pretty cool because it had, had the university students, girls that were going to be teachers coming over to the school. Hey, nothing like, having a good looking, 18, 19, 20-year-old, in your classroom. Obviously I was starting to become aware of, all that. A lot happened. I'm starting to sound like Forrest Gump, in a way, because, history, the things I was around, in 63, November 23rd, 1963, president got shot. Well, Austin, Texas. His next stop from Dallas was Austin. And I remember it all well. I was captain of the safety patrol. Back then, we just didn't have the kind of the nonsense that was going on. So basically, students, it was a prestigious thing. Students, would get nominated to be part of the safety patrol, and you come in early, you go to this closet, and you get the little, belt and everything, the little badge, and you help people cross the street because it was, it was a congested area there. We're like a block off of that main street that skirted the campus. And the fascinating thing is when I walked to school, we would walk through the campus, to go to school. So that was always go home. But so I was captain of the safety patrol. So I get called out of class. Literally, I get called out of class. Principal, officer, I'm in trouble. And he said, let's go, get your stuff. So we went. My little, it's like a white, I'm thinking, like a spelt. See a spelt? Just like this, with the little bag. And we went out and lowered the flag to half mast. And then everyone got called into the assembly, and the teacher started crying, and it was just, the president has been shot. And that was a big deal. I mean, especially that was a big deal because we were all getting out that day early. Everybody was getting out of school early for the parade in town. It was a huge deal. And then to have all this change, and you're what? It's like, 63, that would be, 6, 7, 8, I was 9 years old. Yeah, it was a big deal. Remember it well. And then in '66, we had moved back to Oklahoma when my dad graduated. From 64, 66. So 66, I'm up back in Oklahoma, and that summer of '66, we had gone up to Colorado to see my dad's aunt, my great aunt Ruby, because her husband had died. Again, one of these carpenters I'd mentioned, master carpenter, had died, and so she got a pass on the Greyhound or Continental, bus line to go anywhere in the country, type thing. And so she wanted to go up to Estes Park or Rocky Mountain National Park and go camping. So invited us all to come up there. So we went up there, tent camping, and you could do that with families back then, because we're talking about, this was like '66, right? You could do that. And there's a whole nother story there about that. But actually, it's very interesting because we went up there, Denver, and we stayed in a convent. There was like a convent in downtown. So she was staying at this convent, and they got special dispensation for our family, which is mom, dad, 4 kids, to go stay in the convent for one night. Have dinner, sleep, have breakfast, and then go out to Rocky Mountain National Park. That was interesting. Again, you're young and you're, man, this is like an institution. What is going on here? Whatever. Get up to Rocky Mountain National Park. Boy, that was nice. That was like Rockies. That was whatever. Let's get back to Austin. So, the president gets shot. That was a big deal. That was a big deal. But as a 9-year-old, hey, I got out of school for a couple of days. Well, that's how I felt. I mean, it's probably inappropriate, but that's how I felt. So, '62, Bob Dylan. This album comes out, and this is really significant because, and I'm going to play you one of these songs. It's "Don't Think Twice, It's All Right." I'll cover that. Heard it in '62 because we were, again, we're kind of like university, so we interacted a lot with college students because of the park. If you look at the map of Austin, this creek I mentioned, there was a park, that was part of that whole thing, and we used that creek. We used to go down there and play. We'd build rafts. We mined for gold. We were going to discover gold in the creek. And a little sidebar here. 1999, I took family. We went down to Texas. We were going to Corpus Christi for business. I did a lot of workations during my professional career. Take the family. They go play while I'm working. So we had this meeting down in Corpus Christi on the beach, and so stopped over in Austin. So I gave them a trip down memory lane. So we went back to where I lived in the '60s, and I was, driving the car. We had like a Lexus RX 300 or something like that. That first SUV Lexus thing. And we come up to the bridge across the creek in my old neighborhood, and it's like a rainbow bridge. I'm thinking, well, that's odd. They've obviously replaced the bridge because I remember it being a wooden structure, you know. And so I drive over it, and when I get over to the other side, I look around and I notice it's kind of like a cul-de-sac. And I didn't notice it on the other side because I was doing that whole, hey, I remember when I was, you know, all that nonsense you do when your family's around and you're reminiscing. It was a pedestrian bridge. It was not meant for cars. And literally, this thing was like, you know, 20 feet up off bed of the creek, you know, a rock wall. But it was a pedestrian bridge. What if they did? You can't make this stuff up. I tell you, it's just, anyway, got lucky on that one. So, this song comes out, and it was like, oh, this is interesting, you know, because folk was a big thing at that time frame, but the stuff we were listening to, the stuff we were exposed to was the vanilla folk, you know, groups like the New Christy Minstrels, and it was this really clean-cut college kids, you know, they'd come out, and, you know, there'd be like 6 girls and 6 guys, and, you know, with those seersucker shirts on, you know, that kind of thing, and, you know, but a lot of the folk people, you know, ended up in rock and roll, stuff like that. So Dylan was like he was blazing a trail, obviously. Anyway, let's get back to this song. So let me finish my 1966 tie back to Austin, Texas. Well, so we're up there camping at Rocky Mountain National Park on the eastern side of the Continental Divide campground. And by the way, there was this Kansas family, had a daughter my age, you know, 1966. I fell in love, and we fell in love. I remember singing her "Sweet Pea" by Tommy Rowe. Oh, sweet pea, oh, won't you dance with me? Oh, won't you? It's a song that was popular on the radio at the time. I mean, I was just like in love. Anyway, wasn't the first time, wasn't the last time. So, anyway, while we were up there, this ex-Marine, mentally ill ex-Marine, Charles Whitman, goes up to the tower of the University of Texas, mass murder, killed a bunch of people. You know, it's like, you know, upset my mom to no extent. But that's where we used to walk to school, back and forth every day, right through that diagonal across campus, you know. And yeah, that was a traumatic thing back then, and it should be today, but not so common. I mean, unfortunately, but yeah, it wasn't very common back then. Things were pretty safe. Things were safe back then. Well, you know, relative. I mean, the good old days. I know that's always a crock of whatever. But anyway, let's get back to the music. So this is "Don't Think Twice, It's All Right," and this was kind of like, oh, this is interesting type thing, because I had like 2 years earlier, 1960, went to see the grandparents. I had a really great grandfather, and I'll tell you some of the stories about my adventures with him. But they had bought one of those console stereos, you know, that used to be like, you know, you had like furniture. It'd be like furniture, right? And they'd give you albums when you bought this. Well, one of the albums was Elvis Presley. Well, I put this album on. Wow. You know, that's when I got, I started, you know, Elvis was very influential to a lot of people. You know, the Elvis and the Beatles, like golfing, you know, is Bobby Jones and Ben Hogan. I mean, there's just key things that happen, and key people, key events. But anyway, I listened to that album, and it was just like, like this. You know, So I was tuned in to hearing what was going on out there because we lived, again, a university, right? Students out there, we'd interact because there was a park, that was part of that creek thing. There was a fire station right off of Guadalupe. That these guys, the fire station, they sold popsicles. So we were always in the fire station, right? And plus they had the supplies for some of the games you could have out in a park. But we'd go out to the park and people would be flying, airplanes, model airplanes, engineering students, and are sitting in the grass, playing music. And so we were like really plugged into this stuff. So when this album came out, Dylan, totally was tuned into it. But boy, I tell you, he was always ahead of his time. Sit and wonder why, if you don't know by now. And there ain't no use to sit and wonder why, baby. It'll never do anyhow. When the rooster crows out, wake up, dawn. Look out your window and be gone. You're the reason traveling on. So don't think twice, it's alright. And there ain't no